Welcome to Life, Distilled, a new podcast from the folks at MicroShiner. I'm your host, Ryan Hickey. We're coming to you today from Montgomery Distillery here in Missoula, Montana. Today I'm here with Cobey Williamson, founder of MicroShiner. Welcome, Cobey.
Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. So as I mentioned, we're here in the back room of Montgomery Distillery. A quick hats off to Ryan Montgomery for allowing us to utilize this space. We'll talk more about that here as we go in the podcast, but it's a beautiful day out. We're utilizing the new 360 camera that Cobey's so graciously supplied us with, and hopefully the folks on YouTube can scan the room. It's a very cool concept, very cool technology. You can see outside, you can see the entire room. We're surrounded by very cool industrial, motorcycle themed, just kind of very cool space. So thanks again to Ryan and the folks here at Montgomery Distillery for hosting us. But I have a cocktail in front of me, as does Cobey. Why don't you tell us what you're drinking today, Cobe?
So I've got the Honeybee Highball. That is a very refreshing drink. As you mentioned, we're here at Montgomery Distillery, so we popped out into the tasting room in the front and had some folks out there set us up with a couple cocktails before we got started. This Honeybee Highball is vodka, honey shrub, lemon, soda, and then it's got the garnish of spanked rosemary there, which we saw Jacob spank personally, so we know it's legit. And that was pretty great, but it's, as I mentioned, super refreshing, perfect for this nice sunny fall day that we have going on.
Looks like a nice cocktail for a beautiful day here in Missoula. And I went with a Bloody Mary, which is going down very nicely, as everyone can see, and nice garnishments, which I've already pounded half of, and half the cocktail, but it's been great, made with Montgomery's Quicksilver vodka, which we'll talk about more when we have Ryan on the show. But yeah, it's things are good here in the back room. So when I introduced you, I mentioned you're the founder of MicroShiner. And for those that don't know, what is MicroShiner exactly?
So what MicroShiner is a platform for connecting people with craft spirits. And first and foremost, we mean that literally. So we do media that introduces people to the whole craft spirits industry, to small batch lifestyle, and it gets people in touch with folks like Ryan Montgomery and Montgomery Distillery and distilleries all around the world, both through telling their stories and getting people excited about going to check these places out, and as well as providing some tools so that people can reach out and find these places. And we say that it's a platform for connecting people with craft spirits, and we mean that in terms of the actual craft spirits, but we also mean that in terms of it being a bit of a metaphor for our tribe, and that we consider all these folks to be craft spirits in their own right, and we try to help people get in touch with that craft spirit, because it's kind of a thing that we feel at MicroShiner that there's a whole lot of folks out there that are kind of looking for businesses that have a purpose, businesses that share their values, and we want to be part of the mechanism that connects those people with these businesses that share their values, and we think that's a really important thing.
Very cool.
So that's what it is. It's gone through some different iterations, and we're always kind of evolving and pivoting and recreating what it is.
Sure.
As you mentioned, right now, one of the things we're working on is doing this video podcast, and we're excited to be bringing it to you in 360, as you mentioned, and like you said, it's a really cool new technology that we think is really going to be going places and kind of being the way people, as they say, consume content moving forward in the video space, because you can move this image around wherever you want. You can check out this cocktail right here. If you look over at it, you can check out this bottle. You can look up on the wall and see what kind of art Ryan has in this back room that he's so graciously loaned us, as you said. And as you said, also really appreciate him being a sponsor to the podcast and giving us this space to work out of. It's really great.
Absolutely. It's a really fun concept that I think you've opened up, and I'm excited to be part of it, and really excited to be the host of the show, and stoked that you're here. But I think it opens a whole new experience to users. There's so much noise out there in the world that we live in today, so much. And hopefully we just introduce 20 minutes, 25 minutes of very cool concepts like the camera, and then introduce people that, because I think there is a big audience for craft life, distilleries like Ryan Montgomery and so many others. And hopefully we have this platform that just maybe gives folks a little glimpse into their world, and then maybe opens up a discussion or motivates them to maybe go visit a distillery in their small town, wherever that may be. And then it puts that money back into that community, which I know you and I feel very strongly about.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks for that, because you really are daylighting what MicroShiner is. You know, you asked me, what is MicroShiner exactly? And then you just actually did a better job explaining what it is than I did, because our whole goal is to get people to go to craft distilleries, to go to local breweries, to go spend their money in their community with people that they know is then going to sponsor the Little League or is going to do whatever in the community, and that money can just keep circling around there. We absolutely want to inspire you and then give you the tools to go find a local distillery, or when you land in some other town, to pull out our tools, look on the MicroShiner platform. What is the local distillery here that I can go visit? You know, where have those guys been? Who have they already met? Who? Email me. I will introduce you to people there. That's what we're about. We're
Please.
Here, we're here to get people connected with people.
That's right.
And that's really what MicroShiner is all about.
So cool. Hopefully folks are as excited about this as I am, and as our audience continues to grow, hopefully we're able to interact with them and maybe just give them a little bit of direction. And you know, whether they're on a family vacation or a business trip, it's all about the small craft batch life that we want to help promote, and keeping that money in the community instead of going to a big box store, for instance, and you slide your card, that money's just going away forever. We want to influence and help the folks like Ryan to be able to continue their business and employ people and keep the money locally. And I feel very strongly about it. So, which leads me to my next question. How did you get into this? How did you start MicroShiner, and what was your vision?
So how I started this, the bedrock was already laid, the foundation was already laid, because
Sure.
I was already really into microbreweries and pretty much the small batch lifestyle as you described it already. And the way I grew up, it was all DIY. My dad built our cabin that we lived in when I was kids. They moved from California up to the middle of Montana so that they could do that. And a lot of our friends all had gardens that they survived off of. And so I was already kind of had that as my background. You know, I only bought microbrews, and I spent my money on things that I felt were quality, and I spent my money with companies that shared my values. That's a big theme with us at MicroShiner, that we want to introduce companies that and their values, so that you can then see if your values align with that company, and then you spend your money with them.
Right.
So I already had that as a backdrop, and then I went to Bozeman on a business trip. Montana State University is there, and a friend of mine is a professor at MSU, and I called him when I got to town. I said, hey, I'm in town. He's like, oh, let's meet at Bacchus downtown, a great pub. I went in there, and I'm sitting at the table, and on the table is a placard, and it says, rough stock whiskey made here in Bozeman. And I thought, wait a minute. I knew that you could have breweries. They changed the laws there, but I thought that distilling was still off limits, and that spirits was still a space that was really owned by a few big corporations, and that it was essentially illegal to distill even commercially,
Sure.
let alone just at your house for fun.
Right.
And so I grabbed the waitress as she goes by, and I said, "Is this legit? I mean, they make this here in town?" She says, "Oh yeah, you want to try it?" Well, absolutely, I want to try it. So I got 2 fingers on the rocks, I tried it, and it wasn't the best whiskey I ever had in my life. I've had some 30-year Dalmore, and that was pretty smooth.
Yeah.
But I was excited about this whole new thing that I didn't even know anything about.
Made right there.
Absolutely. And so I went back to the hotel and I Googled it up, craft spirits, and there really wasn't much there. The front page of Google, by the bottom of it, there was stuff that wasn't even relevant to craft spirits at all. The biggest article in there was a piece by Katie Steinmetz, tearing her name up here, but she writes for Time. She had a great article there about this whole new thing that was burgeoning, and then a few other big, or the more popular micro distilleries of the time, St. George and a few other ones were up there, and that kind of made the light bulb go off, and that, hey, there's no consumer-facing media about this, and here's an opportunity to kind of get out ahead of the wave and start something that will help drive this and bring this to light.
Cool.
And so I thought by the end of that evening, I decided, I'm gonna make a blog. I spent a lot of time in front of the computer, and I could work on this, and this would be some place to put some creative energy. And
Awesome.
I was really excited about the idea. And then, of course, part of me was like, liquor, there's a ton of money in that, so this is going to be a no-brainer, which totally turned out not to be true. And that was the biggest thing about it all in the growth of MicroShiner and myself. Was I came at it from a background of working in the public sector, and I had no business sense or skills. And so I've had a steep learning curve there. It's been a lot of fun learning about starting a business and trying to do something in the private space.
Awesome. Just to speak on about starting your own business, easier said than done for sure. And so kudos to you, Cobey, for making a go of it with the print magazine, the online platform, and now this really cool podcast that we're here in the back of Montgomery Distillery. As we keep mentioning, it's such a cool space that I just can't stop talking about it. Great cocktails, great concept. And so just hats off to you for continuing, because I know it has not been easy. Starting your own business is not an easy undertaking. And so thanks for having me and making me a part of it. Great story, though, and about discovering the whiskey in Bozeman, and just kind of, as you said, the light bulb moment. Very cool. You knew where it came from. You knew where it was sourced. It might not have been the best sauce you've had, but look where it's, look at this industry. It's still small batch, which is, I would rather put my hard-earned money into small batch lifestyle, whether it's a distillery like Ryan's or someone else's, or a brand of clothing and their values, which drives what they stand for and what I think you and I stand for. And I feel strongly about it because I want the money to stay in the community, to have it come full circle. It creates jobs, it employs people in the town, and there's so much noise pollution in the world that we live in nowadays that it's hard to kind of cipher through it all. So I feel strongly about it, and hopefully this platform is able to introduce and open a new window for folks, whether they're on a business trip or a family vacation, or they shoot us an email and say, hey, I'm going to so-and-so, where should I go? Or through the app or what have you. But we want to introduce this whole new world of craft distilling to folks out there, and this 360 camera gives them a little bit of a cool window into what we're doing here at the podcast. So to segue into my next question, you must be really into booze.
Well, I'll admit that I like a cocktail as much as the next guy, right?
Cheers to that.
But truly, that wasn't what motivated me. I mean, it was what I saw was, here's this opportunity start this conversation around this, because I knew that microbreweries were pretty well already accepted and mainstream at that point. So there wasn't going to be a lot of opportunity in the microbrew space to really start talking about this in the broader context.
Right.
Because that's what I really wanted to do. What I was really excited about craft distilling was, again, a bunch of people now moving from, oh, I just go grab a bottle of vodka off the wall, to, wait a minute, there's this whiskey made in Bozeman, and now there's an opportunity for a conversation that we can then have about all these things that you've been talking about the values of it, the added benefits, you know, how does this all really play out? Because I just think we're in a totally new moment, and that
I agree.
we're moving from all these externalized costs where you're just like, yeah, vodka comes, I go to work, I get money, then I have money, and I go buy vodka, and I don't know where the vodka comes from, and none of that matters. But all of a sudden we're in this moment where we're like, wait a minute, no, there's more to it than that. And I actually want to know where that vodka comes from, because I want to know if they're destroying the environment while they make it.
Right.
Which is kind of hard to do with vodka, but it's possible. Some vodka comes from plants that look like a petroleum refinery.
Right.
In fact, that's where the bulk of vodka comes from. And then you meet somebody like Ryan Montgomery, who's gone and bought this really beautiful copper still, and he's put it in your hometown, and now he's employing a few people you know, and he's on Friday behind the bar himself, and now you go, wait a minute, okay, now here's this whole new way, and it's kind of an old way, but it's a new way for all of us of approaching life.
Yeah.
And filling your pantry or your pockets or your back with the things that you need.
Right.
And we really feel at MicroShiner that the second and third and fourth order effects of that are so much greater than buying a cheap piece of clothing from Ross and just wherever that goes, because you don't know how it was sourced, you don't know what all baggage came with it, you just don't know anything about it. And when you come here, you know, we did this and got this cocktail, and we could have asked Jacob all day long questions about it, and he would have had answers about,
Right.
well, the grain came from Ryan's dad's farm in Lewistown, and, you know, me and so-and-so, we're the ones that did X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And so it was just more so than being really into spirits, which, again, I like them. I probably like wine the best, say, and there's a pretty good bespoke and craft and grassroots culture around wine as well.
Sure.
Just like breweries and a lot of other things. But it was really more the opportunity to have this new conversation that I was super excited about. And I knew that there was going to be an opportunity for that with things moving into this craft space with spirits and all the growth that was going to occur. And so I was like, I'm going to grab hold of this opportunity and try to get this conversation started. And again, we got this wonderful opportunity here with the 360 video, because we're on the kind of front end of this, and there's not that much of it happening, and it's going to be the way people are going to experience things. And I think we're just, with it sitting here and filming us having a conversation, we're only just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
We're excited about gathering more resources and being able to take this show on the road, so we can take you downstairs, show you the production space, introduce you to the staff, go to another distillery, set up in their space, and we're just going to keep moving this thing forward, and the sky's the limit. I mean, I'm really excited about where this is going to go.
As am I, Cobey. It's and as you mentioned, it's just like I want to go back to. It's kind of an old world feel, which I'm a big fan of. Nowadays, I'm really excited about the technology, obviously, but as I mentioned, there's so much noise, pollution out there, and I feel like when you come into an establishment like Ryan's or another small craft distiller, it kind of does take you back into maybe a chapter in history where you feel like, wow, this is kind of a history lesson, and I get to imbibe at the same time. And then you get to interact with the bartender and ask where the grain was sourced and the farm and what have you. You can pretty much find out the entire process if you want. And I think there's a small community out there, and hopefully we introduce that to a larger community, and they start to ask questions and maybe just start to think about where and how they spend their money. And which leads me into another question. With microbreweries and craft distilleries popping up all over the place, I want to know your opinion. Where do you think all this is heading?
Well, I think that it's here to stay, for one thing. And it's a conversation we'll definitely have a few more times when we have distillers on here, because they're the ones that really have the bigger opinion in this. But I don't think you're ever going to go see it go back to the mid-'80s when there was only 15 breweries in the United States, and you actually probably didn't know more than 5 of them. And there was only 5 distillers in the United States. Now there's 2,000 of them. We're not ever going to put that genie back in the bottle. This is here to stay.
Perfect.
That being said, I do think there's some natural limits on the economics of it that are going to limit the growth probably of craft to, at the very upper end, 30%, because there's a certain point where people are only buying at the price point, and so they're going to get a big 175 in plastic vodka that they don't care the values, they don't care where it came from, they don't care anything, because they just need a big giant jug of liquor.
They want a buzz.
And those folks aren't the folks that we're going to be are going to be interested in what we're doing. But hopefully we can win as many of them over as possible. And I think what you're doing here with the podcast and the conversations you're going to have here in the future with myself and other people in the industry, and especially the distillers and all the other small batch people that are practicing this day in and day out, I think it's really going to come to light that this is a place you want to be, because it's so cool and it's so personal, and it gets you in touch with things that you didn't know you were missing, but as soon as they get fulfilled, you're like, this is where I need to be.
Well said. Really well said. Just to echo what you just said about the personal touch, you can come in here and meet Ryan and have a tour and see and ask the questions and see exactly what goes on, which is awesome. And as I said, I think there is an audience out there that is really into this. They just don't have the platform. So hopefully by word of mouth, by internet, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all these social media outlets that we now have, I hope we are able to introduce them to this platform and support locally. As far as supporting, can the market support this, do you think? As far as, I know you kind of touched on it, but let's kind of button hook back to it and just maybe close that. What do you think?
Well, I think that in places where either through tourism or agriculture, that it makes sense, that you're going to see these breweries and distilleries in most towns over 5,000 people. And and they'll be appropriately scaled, so they'll be small. And they won't be trying to get on the liquor store shelves or even behind every single bar, but they'll just be selling out of the tasting room, and they'll just have a small market, and they'll know what that market is, and they'll play to it. Again, I think total market share is probably 30%, but you're really going to be able to find these kind of establishments just about everywhere you go, other than the tiny little towns. And I'm excited about that, because I think the more activity, the more occupation that people are able to have. So not just a job, but okay, this is what I do with myself, and this is what that accomplishes in my community. I think that that's really valuable, and you're going to just see that value proposition grow and grow as this thing progresses.
I mean, I love it, man. But just to be, when is it enough? When do you say enough's enough?
Well, I think that there's just natural economic limits to that. I don't think that there is enough, because I think that most people think about booze nowadays as this thing that's like a luxury, and you just drink it so you can kind of get a little buzz on and hang out with your friends and do some socializing. Yeah. But it has some really deep-rooted relations with humans' progress and civilization, and it's how we stored calories for a long time. And so it's an integral part of the human experience. And so it's always going to be there, and I think that you're just going to find more and more of it at the local level, and you won't be seeing this, hey, it came in on a truck and I don't know where it came from. I think it's just going to keep growing. You're going to see more and more of it across the landscape. Distilling's a little bit different because the capital costs are high to get in.
Right. What do you think is driving all this?
Well, what I think is driving all this,